Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily Coaching. So Daily Coaching are currently hosting a number of online discussions around various topics within the football industry and with people working within the industry itself. So today's topic is going to be around creating a football club. And with me, I have Dominic Best of Football Domination, the founder and also the head coach there as well. So before we actually get into the topic, I'm just going to briefly let Dom explain a little bit about his history and about his background as well. So, Dom, first of all, welcome, and second of all, over to yourself.
Thank you. So, I mean, in terms of like a history, I've been coaching for about, this year now will be 13 years. Started coaching quite young. In terms of playing history, done all right. Was around clubs, in and around it. Went on trial, didn't go on trial, had the opportunities, didn't really have opportunities, if I'm honest. And then, yeah, started coaching from quite young, had my first team at 17, started coaching at 16, had my first coach at 17, first team at 17, and then stayed with that team for about 5 years. And that was Greenhouse Bethlehem, based in Southeast London. Fortunately, that team's no longer with us. The team folded quite recently, actually. So, but I mean, yeah, so started coaching that was my first grassroots team. I was manager of that team as well. So I was with them from under 8s up until under 13s, which was really good. And then during that period of time, I was done a lot of stuff with the FA as a mentee, and was in and around current and ex. So coach educators, part of the FA Skills Tesco program as well, Tesco FA Skills. And then I carried on coaching. I joined Watford. I was at Watford for about 2.5 years while I was at university, because I went to Hertfordshire. So it was a nice little half an hour, 20 minutes drive from where I lived at the time. So I was there for 2.5 years. Until then, I moved back home, and I was I joined Leyton Orient first. I joined Leyton Orient Academy, so I was with them, working with their 9s to 14s, and stayed there for about 2.5, 3 years as well, which was good. But during that time, I became an FA coach mentor as well. So I had a pleasure of being in and around grassroots football, helping with chairmen of clubs, with coaches that needed assistance, needed help. So I was able to impart a little bit of my knowledge, and also learning quite a lot on the way as well. So being in and around Watford and Orient was a really good experience, because working with a different caliber of players, really trying to push them and try and develop players that potentially could then go on and represent their first team level. I was fortunate enough that when I was at Leyton Orient, Michael Obafemi was there, and now he's obviously first team at Southampton. So it's really good to actually see the progressions of certain players that have come all the way through. Even though I didn't necessarily coach that particular player at that time, it's good to see that what was embedded within the club has proceeded and then allowed players to flourish and make first team football. So yeah, in terms of creating a football club, I literally, during my time at Leyton Orient, I decided that I wanted to provide more opportunities within my community. So because I was at Leyton Orient, I wanted to be able to actually give a genuine connection and a genuine pathway for players in and around my community that could potentially have the ability to make it in that particular academy. So Leyton Orient was a Cat 3 academy. And the pool of players that they had access to is very different when you compare them to an Arsenal or Tottenham, a Chelsea or West Ham. So what my thought processes was that I know that South London has a lot of talent. I know it's a hotbed of talent, and now as years have gone by, we've had more and more success stories proving that. So what I wanted to do is provide genuine opportunities, and within doing that, I just started a development centre. So I started a development centre off my own back. No help, no assistance, no guidance, just literally just me saying that I wanted to start something and just see how it goes. So started it.
Would you say that, the sort of experiences, what you achieved throughout the sort of, like you said, from the age of 17, and obviously doing things sort of, running your own team, then obviously going into the sort of academy settings as well, would you say that kind of inspired you and almost gave you the tools to know how to run a team and what a club should almost look like to an extent?
100%. So during my time at Greenhouse, was when I was a mentee at the FA.
Yeah.
So I would be coaching on the weekends at Greenhouse, but sometimes during the week, or maybe after my training sessions on a weekend, I would have to travel up to Middlesex because those were the mentors that I was allocated. So I'll be traveling all the way up to Middlesex to spend time with those more experienced coaches. So at the time, in the Middlesex FA was some names that you'll probably know will be Kevin Green. We had Gary. We had who else was there? Nathan Simpson. We had Edu, who was at MK Dons, and my mentor was Anthony Limerick. So it was a strong team back then, and I had the pleasure of just being a fly on the wall and just taking in as much knowledge as possible, really. So yeah, so I would be doing my team on a weekend, training sessions and matches down in South London, and traveling up to Middlesex anytime I could. This was between of say 18 to 22, 18 to 21, I'd say. And I was doing that while obviously being at university. So I juggled quite a lot at the same time. And yeah, so in terms of what was embedded in terms of learning how to run a football club and things that I noticed was that any new information I was able to get from the FA that not necessarily my fellow coaches would have had access to at that particular time, I would come to the club and say, we should do this, we should do that, we should do this, we should do that. And at first, it was met with a little bit of resistance because it was like, who's this young kid just telling me what we should be doing with our football club? He's just only come. And the reason why I even joined that football club was because when I used to play, we used to play against them quite a lot. And the team that I played for, we built up a little bit of a rivalry. So they knew me very well because of my exaggerated celebrations when we beat them. So that spurred on of a task of when I said I wanted to coach, I contacted them and I said, yes, fantastic, I want to coach. And I want to coach as a job and I want to coach as regular as I can. And at first they were just like, oh, well, what do you mean? You can just come and be a volunteer and every now and again just pop in. I said, no, I don't want that.
Yeah,
I'm coming because this is what I want to do long term. So me as a 16, 17-year-old, I'm sitting down in front of three of the managers of the football club saying that, listen, I'm not coming here just to be a fly on the wall. This is what I want and this is how I'm going to do it. And luckily they saw the passion. They saw that I wasn't being just mischievous or joking around. This is something that I genuinely wanted to do, and it was. So I took it seriously from then, and luckily I'd done my probation, and after the probation I said, look, this is my job now because I'm leaving my other job to come here. So I know that your protocol is to make sure that you have volunteers, but I don't want that.
Yeah, of course.
So luckily they said, okay, yeah, you've proved yourself, so here's your team. So as a 17-year-old, I was given a team, an underage team. And back then, to manage a team literally meant you managed a team. You was in charge of phone calls. You was in charge of meetups of the children. You traveled with the kids to the games and you traveled with the kids back. So me as a 17-year-old, I'm traveling on the bus with 10, 12 kids and 2 parents.
Yeah.
And that was how it was. We had to make sure that we got there and back in one piece.
I think it's interesting because a lot of the time, you know, people who sort of are interested in football will often say, look, I want to take charge of a team. I want to sort of maybe through their previous playing experiences or just the sort of idealistic thing of which we see on TV and the Mourinho's, the Klopps, and we think, oh, I want a piece of that as well. But I think what's interesting from your point of view as well is, like you said, because you've not only had to do the football stuff, which is obviously probably the initial reason, as that like many you get involved in, you want to do it. But like you said, you also had to do the administrative stuff, the stuff where it's the sort of parental guidance of looking after people as well. and, you know, making sure that people are getting to places on time and are arriving at places on time and are being suitably sort of looked after throughout that journey as well. So I think that kind of almost, in a way, probably helps even more so to, like I said, be in a position where you're suitable for creating a club, because you've had all these experiences. It's not just like you've gone, well, I'm a football coach and I've got an idea, I'll run a club. It's you've had that experience built up over a period of time, which a lot of the time I think people said will often think, I'll just put on a session. But I find it very interesting how you've used those experiences and gone, well, actually, I'm going to run a whole club itself. It's a totally different take on things.
1,000%. 1,000%. Because what I've learned through being a coach within an organization that dealt with parents, and they were a registered charity, so they had to deal with the external funders, they had to deal with stakeholders, they had to deal with obviously encompassing their community as much as possible, and then still at the very end of all of those things, try to produce quality football sessions for the kids so they can potentially progress. So within that, there's many layers in terms of the experience that I had in now, when, if you fast forward years ahead, where I just said, you know what, those things I've gained, those knowledges I've gained, those experiences I've gained, and then now if you pair that with me currently working at elite level football at the time, you're thinking, okay, yeah, I think I'm ready to do it, because I've had those years within doing it myself. And if you also take into account that being in a position which I was fortunate enough to be in by working or being a mentee with the FA, to then go in and just learning new things constantly, new experiences, to then bringing it down to the grassroots club I was at, it allowed me to have more of a voice, more of an influence within the club anyway. So, because once they realized that what he's saying is actually true, and what I was saying was maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 months in advance to when it would filter down to the county FAs, then it will be told to the grassroots clubs. Yeah. So that's when they actually realized this kid knows what he's talking about a little bit, just a little bit. So that was how that started. And then so during the time me being at Leyton Orient, I started it. I just picked a venue that I thought was suitable, and the venue in itself, we played our cup finals at the venue I currently use now. So there's many pictures of me as a 13, 14, 15-year-old at the same venue that now I teach and run the football club, winning our cup final trophies, etc., stuff like that. So it's a good turnaround. It's a brilliant turnaround in terms of was there as a player and now there as a chairman, so to speak. So so was at Leyton Orient. Then at Leyton Orient during that time, still very involved with the FA, helping out, doing things that I could do. And then the mentoring role came up, so I became an FA mentor. And that gave me insights into being another person of influence within different football clubs. So I was fortunate enough to go and be in and around clubs within South London, but also different parts of London as well, where I would travel and see how they run the clubs, and then try to say, okay, offer suggestions and maybe things that they could do to change it, or help develop their coaches that they have, or even try to support them changing infrastructure. And that was massive, because learning how clubs can literally change their whole infrastructure to provide a more efficient way of doing things. Yeah, I learned a lot from that. I definitely learned a lot from that. So one weekend I'll be in West London, another weekend I'll be in South London, and then that was my first year. And then the second year I'd done those 2 clubs, another club, and I was part of the Capital Girls League. So I would travel up to Kentish Town, and I would try and support a number of clubs within the Capital Girls League to try and help and support them, not only promote girls football at the time, but provide a sufficient experience for the girls that they actually stay within the clubs, which is really important as well. And the influences and factors which assist in the drop off, because what we found, obviously, the big thing within grassroots football is parents. And how they can be an influencer for the good or an influencer for the bad. And running those workshops and running those individual sessions targeted for parents was massive, because it made me think, if I ran a club, this is what I would want, or this is what I would do, or this is how I can possibly prevent this issue from becoming a big one if I put things in place from the start. And that when it came to actually building as it happened. So the year one that I started, I literally had 2 kids turn up to the development center. So literally, and I'll pay for 2 hours. So I'm losing a certain amount of money every single week. So I'm paying for 2 hours. And how it came about is I sat down with the general manager of the facility and I said, look, I'm not here to do a 10-week. I'm not here to do 12 weeks. I'm here to stay. And if we can negotiate certain things, then I put it down in writing. I'm not going anywhere. This is some place that I want to build. This is a place that I see a lot of potential in, because it had its own car park. It had really good transport links with buses and trains.
Yeah.
So in terms of me thinking ahead and thinking further down the line, I'm looking at it as well. It's accessible for people who drive. It's accessible for people who take trains. It's accessible for people who take the bus. So from that perspective, the main reasons why you wouldn't attend is if you didn't want to, because of the quality of service. Yeah. It wouldn't be a position of location as a contributing factor of you not attending.
Yeah, I think that must be a massive thing, isn't it? Like having a facility, really. It's because obviously, like you said, there's thousands of sessions that go on, and there's thousands of say competitors, but like you said, obviously, I suppose being in that unique position where you was a mentor and you got to go out and see different clubs, I suppose you almost get to see, you know, where are these clubs hosting their sessions and their clubs based out of? Where are they doing the workshops? Where are they doing the matches? Where are they doing training? And like you said, almost see, you know, from your perspective and as a mentor's perspective, what's working, what's not working. Like I said, what would you do differently? I think just naturally as coaches and mentors and football people, we do that in general. We just look at things and think, you know, not necessarily judge it, but we go, okay, well, what could we do if we was in that situation? And I think, like you just said there, the unique situation you was in was you was then able to go, well, we like this and that from certain clubs and certain teams. And like you said, you then got a venue which was, you know, probably perfect for matches, training, workshops, like you said, accessibility, like networking as well in terms of being able to get training, bus, parking facilities. So I think that must be massive. Obviously, like, you know, this is the initial setting up of the club as well in terms of, like I said, the first week you probably struggled to get players there because it's new and it's a brand in which you've got to try and build. But sort of as the time went on, would you say there was any sort of major either challenges to which you sort of faced within either, like I said, creating of it, or as the years went on? I know you briefly touched on parents, and I agree that sometimes parents within grassroots settings can be a challenge at times. But then also as well, what kind of success stories have you had out of the club, and whether that be from a coaches or players' perspective, really?
So to answer that, I'd say when I first started, I started it as a development center initially. So it ran from 2014 to 2016, so for just about 2 years as just a development center. All the main aim was trying to get as many players as I could possibly get in the facility, and trying to coach them as much as possible to try and help them. And the idea at the point was, whether you're within a team, whether you're not in a team, whether you're in academy, whether you're not in academy, it's a place where you can come and develop. And as time went by, word got around, people started joining from that they were training at other teams, but then coming to us because they liked the way that we were doing it. They would be in a grassroots team, but they'll come to us. I even had some of the boys from Leyton Orient travel over from East London to make sure that they can come and train, because they liked the training that I was doing. So then word caught around quite quickly. And then I say quite quickly, no, I'd say in 2 years, the first 6 months, 7 months, I don't think I had more than 6 or 7 kids. But what happened was that when particular parents was coming regularly, and I say over maybe a 2-3 month span, and other parents are like, oh, where'd you take your boy? And then that happens, and oh yeah, Dominic at FD, and then be like, oh, okay, well, where is he? Oh, he's only at Bellingham. Oh, that's really close by. So that kind of thing just spurred on. So I'll take that. That will take us to about 2016. 2016, I think we had about maybe 30 to 40 kids that was on our books, potentially on average 25 to 32 kids training weekly. And then within that, I said, okay, yeah, I think maybe we'll start a group, just a group, a span within a 2-year difference, just as depending on which age groups we've got. So, yeah, so that happened. And then I was going to start it as I was struggling. So you mentioned it earlier about the name. I was really struggling with the name. So it was easy in terms of the company's Football Domination, and that's what it was. But if I was going to put a group together as a team, what would I call it? And then it was, okay, well, do I say like Football Domination Academy? But then I was really against it because the term academy for me means elite. Yeah. And I can't justify calling ourselves an academy because we're not elite. So there was that whole thing, and I wasn't sure about it. And funny enough, I had a conversation with Daniel Gill, and he was the one that said to me, I said, oh, what sounds better, FD or F, or and then yes, or Football Domination Academy? And he was like, yeah, FD United. Why don't you just call it that? And then it stuck. And then from there, we've just said fantastic. So from about 2016 to 2017 is when we actually created the club as FD United. And I went through in terms of the first initial challenges then was for me to actually produce an official grassroots football club, the amount of back-end stuff that I had to complete. And that was alien to me because I only said, oh, we're going to just start this club. I only said we're going to start this club because we had kids come in, and kids are saying that, yeah, they want to play matches, and my phone contacts could only reach out to a certain amount of people, and then we were starting to play the same teams over and over again. So I thought that's hassle. It's better to just put them in a league. But to actually register for a league, to actually qualify to play in a league and make sure that everything is done, that was the first initial challenge. Yeah, because you have to, I had to pay for like stuff like kit, registration costs. I had to make sure that I was, or if not myself, somebody that represents FD was qualified within child welfare, was made sure that they went through all of the steps that were required. And on top of that, fill out all of the forms that was handed to me to register as a football club. So at this point, I had about, I think, two members of staff that had joined, that had remained. So some had come and just left. So another challenge in terms of turnover of staff, because at that point I couldn't justify paying wages. So the main thing that enticed coaches to me was my coach mentoring background. And within my coach mentoring background was me suggesting to the coaches that do come in that I'll support your development. So I would use a lot of the resources that I had and the knowledge that I had as a coach mentor to then when my coaches were delivering, I would be standing behind them the same way that I would have been doing a couple of years ago. Yeah. Prior to that, giving feedback on how they deliver, points that they could do to improve, etc. So that was a first initial pulling power that I had because I couldn't pull them in with money. I couldn't sustain them with money. So that was the thing of, and luckily, like our longest serving coach, Lewis, he was part of that came in from that year, 2015, he came in, 2015, 16, he came in. And that was how our relationship grew in terms of me sustaining, okay, how do you want to develop? Okay, well, this is what I think you should do with this. And then we just work together that way. And then the year on after that, that's when a couple more coaches came in that are still part of us today. And then it was the same thing. Can I help develop them as a coach? So my main thing and part of our strat plan is about creating pathways. So how can I create a pathway for a child, and how can I create a pathway for a coach when they come in? Because there's no point coming in if you don't have aspirations. Yeah. And if you do have aspirations, then I can use your aspirations to help you while you're here.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I learned from when I coached at Grassroots. And my first team was that my manager said, he always said this to me every year, and I stayed there for 5 years. But every year, at the end of every year, he said, how long have I got with you now?
Yeah.
He said, I know I'm going to lose you, but how long have I got with you? Have I got you for one more year? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, cool.
See, I think that's a massive thing, because you mentioned there about, obviously, a lot of time, you know, again, from a coach perspective, you'll probably center the focus around player pathways, which is obviously the right thing to do, which is obviously why we will coach, and why, for example, you probably set up the club to obviously help create those pathways. But I think, again, another unique situation, whether it be from, you know, your mentoring background, or whether it just be from the mindset which you have, but it's like you just said, you're also looking to support the coaches. And I think that's so common that in a lot of clubs, it's like you just said, that conversation you had with that coach or of your first team, you know, there's almost an expectancy for you not to be around for that long as a coach, because either A, they want money, B, they want qualifications, or C, they want the sort of glitz and glamour of, you know, winning stuff. So if they're not winning stuff and they're not getting paid and they're not getting qualifications, it's almost like they don't want to be there. But as you've kind of just rightly mentioned, you know, coaching is such a bigger area than just those three factors. It's like you said, it's you know, getting to know them, really, that building that rapport, building that relationship, and finding out exactly what it is that they want support in, whether that, I suppose, it be technical and you want ideas for sessions, whether that be sort of, you know, the responsibility, which I suppose some coaches and some managers of teams may want as well. So I find that very interesting, that, like you said, it's not only the player pathway, but it's also the coaching one as well.
Because do you know what it was? I hadn't had somebody watch me take a team out or watch me coach until I was at Watford, in terms of watch me train.
Yeah.
But in terms of watch me in a match scenario, would possibly be at university, when I used to coach my university team. I never had somebody that would actually say, oh, Dom, I like what you did there. Good team talk, or good tactics during what you was doing. During my whole Grassroots, the only time that other members of staff would watch was when we reached finals. But they're watching as spectators at that point. They're not watching as an experienced member of staff that's going to impart their knowledge on a coach that's learning. So that's one thing that always stuck with me, is that in terms of the support of coaches, when they are in the crucial years of learning, they're not supported enough. Once they show and they get over a certain threshold of competency, it's merely like they're just left to their own devices.
Of course.
And that's what happens when you have bad habits creep in and people thinking that they know it all when they're not a student of the game, etc. Was because that's what happens then. Because they're left to their own devices, because they've shown competency in one area, that's when other things start to creep in, and then their level of development just hinders, and it creates it gets to a standstill. So in terms of challenges, those were the main challenges that I first had initially, because I'd spent the best part of a year in debt because I was paying for a facility which the little numbers I had coming in wasn't breaking even. Never mind being able to actually have profit to then pay staff.
Yeah.
But once we hit over say 2030, I knew I couldn't physically do it by myself.
Yeah.
I was competent enough to do it when we was hitting, say, 15, even 20 at a point. But once it got beyond that, that's when I started trying to pull in favors or pull in people that I know that wanted to coach and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we're starting. So if you want to be part of it, this is how we go. And then, in terms of first initial challenges, will definitely be finance the level of paperwork that I had to do, because it was just me. It wasn't somebody else. I wasn't with a team of people that brought out all of ideas together. I would come home and have to just think, okay, well, I've got to do this now. Yeah. On top of what I was doing during the day and working and whatnot, I've had to make sure that I fill in whatever I filled in and etc. So, organization and paperwork was the big thing. And then building a trust and relationship with the coaches, because the pulling power wasn't finance. And especially in grassroots football, once you enter grassroots football, you've got to quickly define what direction you're going in. Because if you are there as a community organization, then it's kind of assumed that you're a registered charity.
Yeah. That's a fair
and if
point.
you're a registered charity, then there's a threshold in how much you can charge, because then you're there for the community. And if there's a threshold in how much you can charge, then there's a cap to maybe who would perceive your organization as a quality organization, because, oh, well, that's cheap.
Yeah.
And then the things that come with being deemed cheap. So then it's trying to find that balance of making sure you are of service to the community, but also making sure that you are able to make something sustainable and self-sufficient. And that was the big thing for me, because learning again from the grassroots club that I was at initially, they was a registered charity. So they had to do a lot of things to just gain funding to just keep them going.
Yeah.
They never had enough resources to then reinvest, build bigger, create new ideas, and etc. etc. They was just a turning point of just keeping together year after year after year. And that created a lot of issues. So that's one thing, that when I thought I was going to do this, I had to make sure that I would do it under my own terms and not be in a situation where I'm kind of begging
yourself
to just stay afloat. I didn't want that, especially with the ideas that I had. Me being in that position wouldn't help me with the ideas that I had anyway. So, those were my initial problems and troubles and hurdles, I'd say, that I had to get over.
Okay.
Success stories came as, so we're in our third official season now. Well, the season's ended, as obviously with everything that's going on now, but this is our third official season. And our first season, we had 3 teams. And how I managed that was basically within the FA guidelines of you can group players in within a 2-year ban. So I had an under-8s team, an under-10s team, and an under-12s team. And it was 7s and 8s was 8s, 9s and 10s was 10s, and 11s and 12s was 12s. So that's literally the only way I would be able to make numbers up. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So our first year was 3 teams. Our second year was 5 teams. And this year was 8 teams. So we've grown massively within that. And what has been really good in terms of, goes back to being a mentor now with the infrastructure, the development center remains. So our development center is still running, and it's running really successfully. We've now got ridiculous amount of numbers. Each week we probably average over maybe 135 kids each week, and the 2-hour slot has now become a 4.5-hour slot to just be able to facilitate with all of these kids coming in. So one batch comes in, then they go, then it just rotates after that. So the development center still remains a pivotal part of the company and the organization, because it's an entry point for anyone who wants to come and join in. And from my own experiences of the power of development, I had a boy join in when I was coaching at Bethwyn as an under-8, couldn't really kick a ball, had a medical sheet of 2 A4 size papers, literally. And by the time he was under 12s, we was able to try and get him trials at an academy. So it was like, wow. Within that grassroots clubs as well, we had players that are friends and the same age group as your Jadon Sancho's and your Reece Nelsons. So, and they played with them at like Southwark youth games and stuff like that. So it's a good group of players that have come through and are still trying to push the doors down in terms of their playing career. So it was the knowledge of and the power of development always stayed with me, because I think within football, definitely within academy football, but to an extent it could be justified, but it's creeping more in grassroots football in terms of the judgment element. I think we're so quick to judge before we actually take time to develop. And the power of development within grassroots football will allow a player that can hardly kick a ball to have a trial at a football club and potentially actually get into a club, an academy, and actually have a sustainable career. So you think about it, if now with the demands of football at the top end, there's less time to wait for development, that could be argued.
Yeah.
But within grassroots football, in my opinion, there's no excuse.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think
There's definitely no excuse.
It's massive, and a lot of the time as well, people often, especially like kind of you were saying, like they might start off with an initial idea. So like you said, it was a development center, and then obviously you've created the teams, and obviously like you said, the credit to yourself and the club that it's now sustained over, like you said, into its third season as well. And people, like I said, would often kind of neglect the development centers and go, well, I started with that, but now I've got the teams, so you know I don't need that session anymore. But like you said, I agree. I think it's like development's massive. I think that it almost allows you to play with freedom as well. Of, you know, a lot of the time when you speak to clubs and teams, you hear the word trial, and you know sometimes that puts players off, it puts parents off. But I think, like you said, a development centre, it gives players the opportunity for not necessarily saying they're not good enough to get into a team, but you know, as I've said to many of the parents, there's the appropriateness of people or children going into teams at the right time. You know, you might have a really talented player, but their social skills may be non-existent. Now, if you go into that team where, you know, your social environment's absolutely buzzing, they're going to find it very hard. And it's not because their ability is lacking, but it's because their social skills are lacking. And that just might be purely because they haven't spent the time in something like a development centre around other people, building relationships with others, becoming friends rather than seeing them as opponents and competitors almost. So, yeah.
And this is it. Like I said, in terms of elite level football, like I currently work at Arsenal, and seeing players when they come in on trial, it's ruthless.
Yeah, yeah.
Some players, they already know, it doesn't matter how old they are, they could be 9 to 16. If a player comes in on trial, it's known that that player could potentially take your space.
Yeah.
So that player has no obligation to pass to the trial list.
Of course.
Has no obligation to welcome them in the group.
Yeah.
But they're obviously told to, and they're encouraged to by the coaches and by the environment and stuff like that. And kids being kids initially are not necessarily malicious, but sometimes that sort of stuff can creep into it.
Yeah.
But like I said again, within grassroots football, there should be no place for that. So the whole reason why we kept and why we have our development centre and our football club separate is that our kids that are part of the football club, they still attend and are very, very part of our development centre. Yeah. And that ticks the box of what you just mentioned in terms of creating an integration first. So being respected for your footballing talent and your abilities and your effort and everything first, before the pressures of you performing week in, week out come into it later. Yeah. Now, we've had many examples of that. And that's our written process. Like, nobody comes in straight within to the football club. You've got to come and attend our development centre. You've got to be able to see all of our coaches. So you've got to be able to see and work with all of our coaches. And when we have our debriefs at the end of each week, if your name comes up more frequently, then me and a parent will have the conversation to invite them to attend a training session. So it's a work in progress. Like now this season is more so than ever. I've had emails and texts and phone calls asking for trials. And I'm just like, no, just come on a Saturday.
There's a process.
It's like, oh, can I do that? Yeah. I was like, yeah, just come on a Saturday, see how you like it, really relaxed. If you like it, fantastic. We can have a chat afterwards. I'll give you feedback. In terms of just working on what things he needs to be better at, because the way we've set up the club, I'd say is quite unique, especially if I compare to the clubs in and around where we are, and hearing a number of parents that are also part of other clubs, but make sure that's part of their routine that come and join us on a Saturday. Yeah. And I thought I'm quite happy about that, because even though midweek and on a Sunday, they're going to represent their teams wholeheartedly, and we respect that as well. And we've kept to that and maintained that. However, on a Saturday, because they like the way we do things and they like the environment and there's no egos and anything like that, they make sure that
provides the
they
opportunity,
attend.
doesn't it? Yeah, it provides the opportunity. It obviously, like you said, allows that sort of rapport to be built over a period of time, and potentially, like you said, you're respectful of the fact if they want to carry on playing for their normal club, then that's absolutely fine. But then also potentially as well, it obviously promotes the opportunities and the facilities and the environment that you have. So if they did want to obviously transfer across into FD, then obviously they have the opportunity as well, which, like you said, I think
They already know anyone that's there.
Yeah,
they would already know everyone that's there anyway. So
yeah,
since then, I mean, with people I've met along the way, I've been fairly open in terms of saying, like, with people that have been in the league now that we're in, I want to start something. Like, how do you do it? I'm just like, well, just start a development center first, and then get your income, get your players that are going to come in through that way, and then pick your team after that.
Yeah.
Because then it's a step-by-step process, and it creates and everything links into, in terms of, now that we have our football club, our club ethos, and it promotes the knowledge of working hard. It promotes the notion of being respectful. It promotes the notion of making sure that you have to put effort in, and you have to have a good attitude and behavior before you'll be thought of to be selected to join the football team. Because once you're part of that football team, these things are non-negotiable. These things are just what has to happen to remain as part of this football club. So it ties in to letting them know what we are doing within our culture of the football club. And building our culture of the football club will mean that you have to adhere to what we're doing for you to remain. And it kind of eliminates a lot of the power, egos. Well, this is what I did when I was. Well, that's fine if you want to do that. By all means, you can. You can go and join them. But so in terms of us, I mean, that's been a really good thing in terms of the way we've been growing. It's come with its challenges with expanding, though, as you can imagine. But going from 3 to 5, I still done a lot of the paperwork. I still done basically a lot of the administration, the coaching, and assisting. And I brought in some more coaches after that as well. But we was pretty much managing good at 5 teams. Then we've gone to 8 teams. And then now things like Charter Standard have come in. So then now we have to do a new thing for Charter Standard to make sure that, because it's important to me to make sure that we are as reputable as we can be. So making sure that we are eligible to become a Charter Standard football club, making sure that all of our coaches are at a minimum of an FA license. So even if they don't have, at first it was they have to have a level 1, but I had some good people come in that didn't have their level 1. And within my mentoring roles, I said, well, okay, well, I can signpost you and help you get.
They said you can develop them through that.
I can develop you, get a level 1. Exactly. So you've shown me, like, for example, we've had Coach Sam. Funny enough, he went to my primary school, and I posted out one day just that I was looking for coaches, and a mutual friend tagged him in the post, and then we had conversations after that, and then he ended up joining in, and he ended up saying, look, I want to change my whole career path and just be working within football. And within about 1.5 years, he's full-time working within football now, so which is a really good thing. So yeah, like with him, he never had his level 1 to start off with, but he had a really good manner. He was really patient with some of our most troublesome kids at the time. Really patient, and those were things that you can't teach at a course.
Yeah, it comes down to the personality, doesn't it?
It comes down to the personality and experiences that he had, that he's able to relate to players and interact with them in a way that could influence him to make better decisions. So if he's doing that now, without the formal qualifications that the FA present, if you add that to him, then he's got all the things in place to really succeed within the game. So recognizing that, I was like, yeah, brilliant, come in, I'll try and help you get a level 1 as much as you can. And now he's working on he's actually sorted out his level 2. It's just because of all of this now, he's had to been put of a delay. So in terms of back to challenges, it was literally the main challenges was trying to expand and getting good people and good coaches that are going to keep the brand of what we've built thus far alive and still maybe adding their own little twist onto it as well to just make everything get bigger.
I think what's quite interesting is, again, going back to the sort of licenses thing, again, I've had quite a lot of debates about this. And, you know, I often think that licenses and qualifications are job indicators, not necessarily ability indicators. And, you know, like you just mentioned, it's interesting how you said about having just the license. I think, you know, that like those sort of phrases there are almost gold dust, you know, for coaches who are just starting out and want opportunities, because obviously there is a situation of, you know, clubs more times than not saying, well, you have to have a qualification to come to the club, but you have to have a club if you want to try and get a qualification. So it's that roundabout system, and I think it's quite unique. Dom, I was going to say, so kind of like looking as a sort of overview, obviously, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you on here today is, like I said, you've obviously set up FD through kind of the experiences of what you've had in the past. And also through the background of you being mentored yourself, then going into a sort of mentoring role with other clubs. So you've kind of got the opportunity to see other teams and other clubs and how they operate. And then, like you said, you've gone from development centres to running the sort of, first of all, initial couple of teams to now expanding even further. Not only does your club operate on the sort of basis of promoting the players, which obviously most clubs do in this day and age, but obviously you also promote the pathway and routes for coaches as well. So kind of just as an overview, like I said, I think it was massive to get you on here today and discuss, you know, the whole topic around creating a club. Because I think, like I said, the model that you have is fantastic, and it's something which, you know, like I said, you've probably been out to see lots of clubs when you've played them in opposition games, but something which a lot of other clubs can replicate and use as a system themselves. If you don't mind, I was going to say, do you want to share some of your social media handles so that people can kind of get in touch with you and obviously have deep conversations, and potentially even if people out there are watching and thinking, you know, I want to start a club myself, potentially set up a match against FD, how they can kind of reach you?
Yeah, and yeah, just before that, I remember I forgot to answer your last bit in terms of club successes. Last year and this year, last year we was able to win three trophies between our age groups, which was really good. And this year we've been heavily involved with academy football a lot more by creating friendlies and playing against them. And that's something that we're looking to continue and make sure that we can push forward in terms of giving our boys opportunities. Three of our boys have been in at Arsenal centres, and we've got many boys that have been in pre-academies within Arsenal, Chelsea, Fulham, etc. So the quality of football is really going quite well. In terms of socials, you can catch us everything Football Domination. So Facebook, Football Domination, Twitter is FDomination, Instagram, Football Domination, and we'll be posting a lot more on YouTube now as well. So if you just look out for us on Football Domination on YouTube. If you want to email me, it's info@footballdomination.com.
No problem, Dom. That's perfect. And listen, what I'll do is I'll put all the social handles, and if you're happy for me to put your email address as well, I'll post that in the descriptions too, so that makes obviously people life a bit easier to access. But yeah, Dom, massive thank you for having you on. I think, like I said, it's massively important to get you on and discuss creating a club, as I think you're one of the pioneers for that at the moment within South East London and across London as well. So yeah, massive thanks, and yeah, we'll look to catch up soon. All right.
All right, cheers, pal.